Hey everyone, this is a video about Mips clip, sort of details about how it works and how to do it blindfolded. Sort of the motivation for this video is that Boobsia just set a new 16-star world record, and Mips clip is probably the hardest trick to do while blindfolded in the 16-star run. So I wanted to investigate a bit more about how it works and some of the details, and I thought I would share it all with you in a video format. So, for those that are unfamiliar, Mips is this little rabbit that appears in the basement after you get 15 stars, and you can use him to get through some doors to Dire Docks earlier. And basically, if you look when Mario's standing, Mips casts this shadow right here, and the general tutorial that you'll find if you try to look up how to do a Mips clip will say to basically walk into this corner very slowly until that shadow disappears. And once it does, then you just crouch and that pushes you into the door, and then you can grab Mips and you can take him and bring him to this second door in order to get to Dire Docks without 30 stars. So, the question is, why do we care about this and why do we need a video? Well, it turns out it's a very precise trick. I didn't realize quite how precise until I started using this memory hacking software from Spyro. And basically what this software allows you to do is look at the values in a game that aren't visible on screen. So for example, right here, I can see Mario's X coordinate, Mario's Y coordinate, where Mips is, and then the angle that Mario is facing, and this thing called the Holp, which is the held object's last position. So basically where Mario is holding something. But for right now, I want to just focus on Mario's angle and his X position. So here's an example of Mips clip. Basically this wall here is keeps your Y value at 1354. So if you look at the X value here, it's negative 3159. And if we go ahead and do Mips clip, we see that we can grab Mips and it all works fine. So that's at 3159, which is here. If, however, we change it to 3162, so just 3 units over, so you can see how little of a change that is. If we then do Mips clip, if we try to grab Mips, we can't reach him anymore. So just that tiny change makes Mips clip fail. And additionally, in the one that works, we have an angle of minus 3200. If we change that to minus 3600, which is, just a degree or two different from our starting position, we can no longer clip into the door. We just get pushed out by Mips. So, the question is, why is Mips clip so precise? And one of the things I looked into was, what exactly happens with Mario holding Mips and when he releases Mips. So we can see right here that if we look at Mips' shadow, it moves very slightly back and forth as Mario sways back and forth. And we can actually see that in the memory hacking software that the values for the whole X and Y position change a little bit. They move around, and this is important because if we go ahead and pause the game, we'll see that the whole, for example, the X position is at this 1815.12. If we then release Mips by holding Z and starting the game again, Mips's X position is now 1815.12. So when you release Mips, by crouching, it goes wherever the Hulk position was, which varies a little bit as Mario sways. And also, you can see that the shadow moves a bit more back and forth when Mario runs. So if you look right there, you can see the shadow is moving more when he runs than when he's standing, but it moves a little bit in either case. This is important for Mips Clip, because if we stand in certain positions, we'll see that Mips' shadow disappears and reappears, and we know that the trick only works when his shadow isn't there. So it's not enough to just be standing in the right position with the right angle, because some of those can fail if you try to do the trick at the wrong time. So as an example, like his shadow is visible, the trick fails, and when his shadow isn't there, it works. So what's the difference here? So let's go ahead and pause the game when Mips has no shadow, and we can see that Mario's position are at integers and the Hulk is at, some big complicated fraction. In particular, Mario's at 3159 and 1354. So when we release Mips, we see that in this case, he doesn't get released at the Hulk, he gets released at where Mario was. So why is that? Well, it turns out that the Hulk is actually in an out-of-bounds position. It's inside the wall here, and you can't place Mips out of bounds. So the game recognizes that that's what it was trying to do, and as a safety precaution, it just puts Mips where Mario is. So, what happens when Mips gets placed where Mario is? Well, we can see that here. I just have placed Mario at some convenient coordinates. And if we pause the game and update Mips' position, we'll see that he actually displaces Mario. So Mario right now, his Y position is -1000, but if we put Mips there, like so, you can see that Mario's Y position is now -918. So he's moved forward 82 units. Now the thing is, if Mips is placed on top of him, he always moves forward 82 units, but it's forward relative to the direction he's facing. So if he was facing this way, he would get displaced to like here, for example, instead of always going necessarily this way. So, alright, that basically tells us what's going on here, and that when Mario puts down Mips, Mips then gets put on top of Mario. Mario gets pushed forward into either the wall or the door. It depends on the exact geometry of the wall, whether or not he clips into the door, but essentially, at certain Y positions, Mario's in the door. And we can see this in particular if we change Mario's Y to say 1430, that's in the door. You also see that he kind of oscillates a bit. If you look at his Y position, it goes back and forth between 1430 and 1438. And this is always going to be centered around 1434. So if he... and this is kind of important because when you go to grab Mips, you can't grab Mips if you're too far away. Fortunately, that punching animation lasts over several frames, so you actually want to be oscillating, because the closer you are to the front of the door, your punch is more likely to connect, even though half the time that puts you like towards the back of the door. The fact that you're towards the front half the time is good, actually. So, what all does this mean for when you're trying to do it blindfolded? Well, our basic strategy for doing it blindfolded is you can't really hear the wall when you're holding on to Mips, but if you can manage to get into this corner, the basic idea is you can try and zoom out, and that will give you a fairly consistent angle. The thing is, you have to zoom out twice in order to get a consistent angle. If you just like run around and zoom in, you're gonna get all sorts of random things. So like this is 8368. If I do it again, I get 79 something. But if I zoom out again, I'll always move to 8638. So you can do that and then stop, and you can normalize Mario's movement just by putting down Mips and grabbing him. And that's pretty consistent. And then if you move the camera, you're basically lined up with the door, and that gives you, if you time it right, it generally works. But you can see when Mario runs up, his angle starts at 560. Once he ran into the door, it changes a little bit, but the actual first like movement, if you look right here, yeah, it goes to 560, which is pretty close to 0, is pretty close to vertical, which would be like ideal. But you know, because as he runs at 560, he's gonna keep sliding along the wall, and ideally you'd want that to be as little movement as possible. But it works. It does give you a couple frames where you can make it. Another way that seems to work a little bit better is once you get zoomed out like this, hit left C twice, and that will just change the angle slightly. It's important that you wait between those left C's, because if you just mash multiple times, you're not always going to get the same angle. But if you go ahead and hit it once, wait, and hit it again, you'll be at a consistent angle. Once you do this, you're going to want to hit right C. For whatever reason, the game won't register the first flick of the camera, but if you hit it again, you'll move and you'll be at a consistent angle here. So at this point, what you can do is, if you release Mips 5 times instead of 4, because you're at a different angle, then you're basically in the same spot as before, and if you move the camera over, it will then pan back to the left a little bit. Instead of being at that 560 angle before, you'll be at like 204, which will get you a little bit more time, and should be a little bit more consistent. Yeah, and the thing is, if you're gonna do this, it's really important that you do those left C's, because if you just start here and don't do the left C's, when you try to move right, your camera angle is gonna be a little bit different. And then in particular, once you go ahead and try to move right so that it pans back over, it won't pan back over. So make sure you hit left C twice if you're gonna try this technique. Yeah, so that should be pretty consistent. What you can try to do is move to the right once more and then do 7 punches, and that gets you a really good angle. But the thing is, it's going to take a while for Mario to get over to the right position, and you have to keep time with that blindfolded, which is difficult. And the other issue is that I sometimes, if I try it this way, I sometimes see that it's just not consistent with where the angle moves to. You know, I'll start in a consistent spot, and then once I move the camera, sometimes it's 1056, sometimes it's 1086, sometimes it's something else. And if you happen to get an inconsistent value there, then basically you're going to fail the Mips clip, and you're going to have no way of knowing that it's different before you fail it because you're blindfolded. Yeah, so my general recommendation at this point is just mash to zoom out, and then hit left C twice with gaps in between so that you get a consistent angle. hit the right C once, nothing's gonna happen. Hit it again, go move to this angle, stop running, just grab and release Mips 5 times. And then if you hit the camera right once, it will pan back, run forward, and it's going to depend on your timing when you want to release. I think I usually do like 7 steps. But, you know, it's going to depend exactly on what audio cues work best for you. Yeah, so that's sort of a general knowledge dump and kind of tutorial on how to do this. Hopefully you found it useful if you're trying to learn how to do Mips Clip blindfolded.